so great to be here. So I've come with pages of quotes. I've come with something from one of my books. And then I'm sitting here after I heard Joseph say that the focus of today is intuition, something that I've known for quite a while because it was on my calendar for months that I was going to speak today. And I made up the title months ago, which is Into It, from the word intuit, divided it into 3 words, and then igniting your intuition. And as we were singing Love Is My Decision, I was struck by the words which are in each of the stanzas, and once I decide to change my mind, God will show me how. That's a definition of intuition. And we just sang Raising the Veil. Isn't it in raising the veil that we get this feeling in our gut that we know that, yes, this is the path to take, or no, this isn't the path to take? And when we raise that veil, what are we opening our inner eyes and our inner ears to hear? It's that still small voice within. It's that inner knowing. It's that sense of I am supported just as the floor beneath my feet and the chair beneath your bodies right now support you. There is a knowing within us when we are plugged into Source, whatever our name for Source is. If it's God, Goddess, Buddha, the great mystery, the greater field of life, if the name that we give to Source is love, it is as close as our decision to ask, what would love do here? And then as I was sitting in that chair and noticing the light shining on the beautiful flowers and hearing Robert's expression of love for the celebration of Karen's birthday and his love for her. And isn't that what happens when we shine the light of love within to listen to the still small voice, that we are given guidance that is always available to us? We have 2 parts in this practice. The first part is the asking. What is my next step? What's the best route for me to take to avoid traffic? Timely for this time of year out here. What do I say? How do I approach this? How can I see this through the eyes of love? So the asking is the first part, and it's crucial. The next part is the listening. Because so often that still small voice, that voice of love, speaks as a very clear, short sentence. There's no big story about why this is a good idea. So someone may ask you why you've made that choice. Well, I made this choice because, this and that. It was the most reasonable to do. It was the easiest to do. As soon as you start justifying a decision that you're making, I encourage you to go back inside and ask, what is my next step? What would love do here? And I'm going to give you an example of that as I pass out something for you. Here, I'll start at this end. Some of you got this from me once before a few years ago, and I'm passing it out now because there's a story about intuition that goes with what I'm passing out today. So for those of you who don't know me and haven't heard me speak before, I give out charms when I speak because I need as many reminders as possible to go inside. I need reminders to stop and to ask, what would love do here? When I find myself getting concerned, approaching fear, feeling anxious, feeling overwhelmed, feeling angry, feeling discouraged. Anybody familiar with any of those feelings? Or possibly all of them? And so I gave a lot of thought to the charms for this month. And I found the perfect ones. But they didn't arrive in my mailbox before I left Massachusetts the other day. So I had this moment of, as you might imagine, the voice that is not the still small voice. Why did you wait so long to order them? You've had like 4 months to do this. You couldn't even get this together. It lasted about that long. And then I heard very softly, "In God we trust." And what's written on a penny? In God we trust. Well, then the next dilemma came because I didn't go to a bank to get pennies. But I found a bank open yesterday and I got the pennies. And I didn't open them up till just this morning. And I opened them up and I was disappointed downstairs because not all of them were bright, shiny copper. So I went inside again and I said, okay, I don't want to hand out something that I have an attitude about. Because I don't think that attitude is the still small voice. And I said to myself, I'm doing the best I can do. And so somewhere during Love Is My Decision, through I'm Raising the Veil, it occurred to me. Whether you got a shiny one or you got a dirty one, I encourage you to get some copper polish and make it shine. And make it shine as a symbol of your commitment to have a clear channel open to listen to that still small voice within. Because it gets louder and clearer the more we ask and the more we listen. And sometimes we think that getting older, some of us, our hearing diminishes. But this is a kind of hearing that the older we get and the more we use it, the more the veil is lifted, the deeper the connection is. So I just want to share with you some words from Ernest Holmes on intuition. They're very clear. Intuition is God in man, revealing to him the realities of being. And just as instinct guides the animal, so would intuition guide man. And so often, I really think it happens around 4 years old, our attention goes outside. We start paying attention to others. We become familiar with comparison. This is good, that's bad. I'm right, you're wrong. You're right, I'm wrong. And we look outside of ourselves for the answers of what is my next step. Yet, those of us who practice new thought know that everything that exists begins in mind, begins as something invisible. whether it's the chair you're sitting on, this community that we're part of. It begins in the invisible. We see it from the inside out realm. So when we look for our answers outside, we may very well get an answer. We may get a solution to a challenge that we're facing. But it's a solution that doesn't have roots. It may immediately stop the suffering and pain, the uncertainty that we're experiencing, but we haven't transformed the pattern. That when something's not working out here, the place to go is in here. The place to go is to make sure that the circuit breaker is open to our connection with Source. And then to ask the question, simple question, what would love do here? So I've given you this charm, this penny. You know, I'm also struck with the saying, a penny for your thought. Wasn't that interesting? A penny, which says, in God we trust. What thought is it really asking for? Do we have the courage to express what's true for us? Do we have the courage to take that step, to listen to the response and then act on it? And there are situations where it takes a lot of courage to speak our truth in an environment where there are opposing opinions. It's sometimes so easy, and certainly in the midst of what goes on in political campaigns, it's so easy to think this is a good candidate and this is a bad candidate and have a variety of opinions. But what if everything is a call for love for us? So I want to share with you a practice that I did for a year, because I wanted to know that still small voice. I knew it when it was the chills. You know, some people call them truth bumps. You speak with somebody or you hear something and every single cell in your body is kind of vibrating and you just know that you've heard truth. There's a connection that's going on. But I wanted to know, what does it sound like for me when it's not at that level of the chills? When it might be asking, you know, which way do I turn? What road do I take? So the practice that I made up for myself was that whenever I pulled out of my driveway, it's when I was living in East Hampton, I would ask the question, which way do I go? Because if I went this way, I could still get to a main road. If I went this way, I could still go to a main road. It really was not about the road I was taking. It was about learning to listen to the voice. So sometimes I heard it very clearly, and my hearing is mostly in my left ear for this voice. And I'd hear go left, and I would go left. Sometimes I got a picture of a road, and I would trust that. And what I can tell you is absolutely amazing things happened during that year. Not every single day. I'd find out afterwards that I had avoided an accident. I'd be thinking about someone the day or two before, and because I went this particular way, there they were. And things like that happened over and over and over again. But again, the purpose of this was, how do I ignite the intuition? Well, I have to become familiar with the language of it. How does it speak to me? Does it speak to me in a voice? Yeah, sometimes it does. Does it speak to me in images? Yeah, sometimes it does. Does it speak to me in sensations moving through my body? Yeah, sometimes it does. So if you are committed to be guided by God, Goddess, love, the great unknown, the great mystery, what is your commitment to practice the asking, the listening, and the taking action. And what keeps you from that? With no judgment about it, with a sense of curiosity. What keeps me from it sometimes is habit. You know, I mentioned when I first realized that the charms hadn't arrived, I was pissed off at myself. That's a habit. That's a well-traveled path. And because I've traveled it so often and I've traveled so many other paths for over 40 years, I don't stay there very long anymore. Or if I do, I reach for support. And what's support? Support is sometimes a quote. And here's a quote by someone named Kathy Koch. "The Holy Spirit does not scream at us to be heard. He requires that we be quiet to hear his still small voice." This is such a stretch for us, living as we do in a sound-saturated world. But the rewards, peace, contentment, and a sense of purpose are well worth the effort. So what does it take? Well, this is some of what it takes. In community, to be focused on allowing love to illuminate your path. What does it take? It takes that when we notice that we're acting as though we're not loving, it takes us acknowledging ourselves for noticing. Because in that moment of noticing, in the present moment, we have a new choice. We do not have to be doomed by the default pattern. I don't know about you, but I have Microsoft Word on my Apple computer, and I get upgrades for that kind of every week and a half. So if our computer programs that we depend on, and this particular one is called Word, if there are computer programs that get updated, and maybe we get a little annoyed sometimes because we're in the middle of something. Do I update it now? Do I update it later? What do I do? Is it going to be something I don't understand? All of that noise that goes on. But what do we do about updating our own software to open the channel to hear what would love do here? So I've given you that penny. It could get lost amongst other pennies. And if it does, then choose another one. Because they say, "In God we trust." Shine it. Put it somewhere where you can see it, simply as a symbol to be into it. Intuiting, isn't it interesting, the word intuit? Into it. How do you get there? You've got to go in. So I encourage you, throughout the day, simply play with the question, what would love do here? It can be as simple as you go to the refrigerator to get something to drink. Ask what love would do here. What drink would love take right now? You go to a restaurant, there are a few things you want. Ask what love would choose. As a way to simply practice listening and hearing, and then taking action to the wisdom, the knowledge that resides in you always and now and forevermore. Thank you.